Hey, how's it going? Bill Lethman here for Money Evolution. In this video, I'm going to be talking about your required minimum distributions. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about whether or not your required minimum distributions are going to be a problem. In other words, is it going to be a tax problem? Is it going to push you up into a higher tax bracket? And is it something that you should be thinking about and something that you should maybe be taking some action on today? So in this video, I'm going to kind of break it all down with sort of a little bit of a mini case study using some hypothetical numbers and an example. And you can see some of the things that you may be wanting to think about as it relates maybe to your required minimum distributions as you're going into retirement, or maybe you're already in retirement and you're concerned about this. But real quick though, before I get into the content of today's video, if you're watching this and you'd like to learn more about what we do, head over to moneyevolution.com. We're building out our website to be really a tremendous financial resource for pretty much everything financial, retirement planning. We talk a lot about tax strategies here on the channel. In fact, as I'm recording this right now, I'm actually going to be recording a live stream presentation or conducting a live stream presentation on October 17th, 2024. So if you're watching this video before then, check out some of the links down in the description below and you can learn how to watch that. And if you are watching this after October 17th, 2024, we're going to still have some links down probably to a recorded version of that presentation. So check that out and let's dive right in. So specifically, like I said, required minimum distributions. If you don't know, the Secure Act 2.0 made a couple of changes to this back a couple of years ago. And now, depending on what year you were born, your required minimum distribution age is either going to be age 73 if you were born before 1960, and it's age 75 if you were born in 1960 or later. So let's take a look at some numbers here. Let's use a hypothetical individual here, maybe a married couple even, and let's say that they're 57 years old today, and let's say that as it stands right now, they have $2.5 million in traditional retirement accounts. And those traditional retirement accounts are, again, those accounts could be 401k or IRA money, maybe some rollovers from 401ks, but that's money that has not been taxed yet. So as you distribute that money, you're going to have to pay income taxes on that. And at age 73 or 75, you're going to be forced to start taking some of this money out for your required minimum distributions. So let's say, you're doing pretty well here if this relates at all to your individual situation. And again, if you're maybe in a little bit different situation, I think you'll still get kind of the idea here and still be able to take away some pretty good ideas. But let's say these individuals are making $300,000 per year, and let's say they're contributing $40,000 per year to those traditional retirement accounts. So the first thing we want to do is, if they're still working, still contributing, we want to be thinking about how that money is going to grow between now and the time we retire. In other words, we really want to separate this into a couple of time period chunks and sort of mapping this out. It's something I've been big on and I've talked about a lot on the channel. It's what we do with our high-end financial planning, and even with our Retirement Time Machine program, we are doing the same thing. And shameless plug there, you can check out the links for those two programs down in the links below as well. But let's say you're adding $40,000 a year to this, and if we just assume, let's say, a 7% rate of return, by age 62, we'll assume maybe that's the age that they want to retire, that is going to grow to $3,736,408. And that's something that I calculated on a financial calculator. You could do the same thing. You could probably go to Google, find one of those present value calculators that you can put these numbers in. And basically we just put in $2.5 million as our starting value, adding $40,000 per year. 7% was the rate of return. And we did that for 5 years from basically age 57 to age 62. So already we can start to see, okay, that's starting to get to be, not that 2.5 million wasn't already a big number, but 3.7 getting even bigger. The next phase that we're going to come to is going to be sort of that early retirement. So if they're retiring at age 62, this video is not going to be about Social Security, but for most people, collecting Social Security at full retirement age is probably, I would say, something that fits in with about 75 or 80% of our financial planning clients as the best strategy for them. So we're going to assume that they're not going to take Social Security at age 62, even though they would be eligible for that, but at a reduced amount. But they're going to wait until their full retirement age to collect Social Security. So we're going to assume that they're going to need to take some money. Now, we can get into discussions about the different buckets that we have for tax purposes. Right now we're talking about traditional IRAs or 401k plans. We could have Roth retirement IRAs or 401ks, and we can have non-retirement accounts. But let's assume that they're going to take some money from these traditional retirement accounts, and they're going to do that for basically another 5 years to age 67, and they're going to take out $200,000 per year, but we're just going to keep things simple. We're going to assume that they're still earning that 7% rate of return. So with $3,736,000 invested for 5 years, taking out withdrawals of $200,000 per year, if they were earning 7% per year, they're still going to be in a growth mode, still growing. That's over $4,090,000 and $357. So even though they were taking some pretty large distributions, that money's still growing. And then the bigger thing we want to look at then is, okay, so let's get us from 67 to, we're going to assume that these individuals were born 1960 or later. We're going to get to age 75, and we're going to say, instead of taking $200,000 per year, let's say they're taking $150,000 per year, earning the same 7%, $5,489,000 is the number specifically. And I'm just doing all of this with a basic financial calculator here. So $5,489,025 is the amount that is projected to be in their IRA or traditional retirement accounts at age 75 when they have to start beginning those required minimum distributions. There's a formula for that. Actually, there's a divisor table that the IRS uses to determine how much you're going to have to take out. Basically, you take the December 31st balance from the prior year, divide it by that number, and that tells you how much you have to take. Essentially, it's a little bit less than 4%, but your first year distribution is going to be about 4%, which would mean that their first year required minimum distribution would be $219,561,000. And so the next things you want to do is you want to kind of think about where that may fall in the tax table. You're going to have to add in probably at least your Social Security benefits. If you had a pension or any other sources of income, you're going to have to add that to that and think about what kind of tax bracket you could potentially be in at that time. So if you think about it, along the way, we really had a couple of decisions. I didn't really get into those decisions up front here in the video, but decision number one is where to save. I don't like the size of that. So where to save, okay? So one of the options, instead of continuing to put money into that traditional retirement account, maybe you switch it up and maybe you do Roth IRA contributions. There is a new law coming out as part of that Secure Act 2.0 where if you're in a high income situation, which these individuals would, I think it's $140,000 per year of income, you have to put your matching contributions into the Roth bucket anyway, but you know, they're putting money still in traditional as I kind of outlined it in this example here. But where to save, so you could change that up and do Roth. We still do have here in 2024, this year, there's still time between now and the end of the year, and even 2025 next year, we still have room for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and room probably for these individuals in the 24% tax bracket, which is where I think there's the best opportunity, where that new tax law that went into effect in 2018 really kind of opened up those tax tables. That 24% actually goes about $100,000 into what used to be the 33% tax bracket. So doing a Roth conversion at 24% might make sense for them, and quite honestly, probably would without really getting into the details of that. And that's something we help clients analyze and get into the details there. So, so you could do a conversion there as well. The second piece of this is basically that time during early retirement. And this is something that I think almost all of our clients probably have, or at least a very high percentage of it, where we have some years early on in their retirement, especially if they did retire before Social Security benefits kicked in. But we have these early years where we have some low tax years where maybe that Social Security hasn't kicked in. Maybe even sometimes you have a pension that might not kick in until age 65. And you basically almost have no taxes because there's no income coming in. Well, that could really open things up for doing some Roth conversions. They already are taking some distributions here, but depending on where they fall in the tax bracket, Roth conversions on top of those distributions might make sense there. But if they have any money in some of those non-retirement account buckets, it might make sense for them to use some of that money for their living expenses, and then they could fully take advantage of maybe a Roth conversion for that $200,000 instead of having to take it out as a withdrawal. That may not necessarily bring that future total down too much there, but it would definitely do some good there. And I think with those Roth conversions, like we were talking about in that still working phase, I think could really make a difference there as well. And then as we go into retirement, those required minimum distributions, again, one of the most important things to understand today is what those future taxes are going to be potentially on those required minimum distributions. And there's a lot of things that go into that, of course, and things that we just really simply don't know. Of course, we don't know what the rate of return is going to be on our investments. We're using 7% here. If you earned more than that, then that's going to be even a bigger issue potentially for what some of those taxes are. It's a good issue to have. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's something that could really increase those future taxes. We don't know what the tax code is really going to be. We know that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is something that went into effect in 2018 and had a sunset provision, so it goes through the end of 2025. So 2026, if Congress doesn't enact any new tax laws, we're going to revert back to those old tax tables, but it'll have an adjustment for inflation. But that's a long time we're talking about here. We're talking about over a decade here, and there's a lot of new tax legislation that could potentially come out there. Not knowing that, and then again, just planning out some of the stuff and thinking about what those tax rules are going to be there. So this is something that we do in our financial planning. We do this through some very high-end financial planning software. So we have our full financial plan that we do, which is a one-on-one program where we work with you through a series of meetings to develop your plan, put it together, run through strategies, a whole bunch of different what-if scenarios. But we also have our retirement time machine, which is a little bit more of a self-guided DIY experience where you build out using the same software a financial plan, but you're doing a little bit more of the work there. And then through some video instruction that I put together, I'm helping you to understand and interpret some of those reports. So we kind of combined what is a very good tool that's a very high-end financial planning tool along with some instruction and kind of that personal connection. We're also right now including a one-on-one meeting with one of our advisors in the office that can sit down with you and help you to go through your plan, make sure everything's inputted correctly, and then run through some scenarios. So it's a little bit more of a watered-down version, but that would allow you to go through and kind of identify and see if some of these future tax issues might be an issue for you. So anyway, we'll put links to all of that stuff down below. Be sure to check out our live stream presentations. Like I said, the next one is coming up on October 17th. It's going to take a deep dive on understanding your taxes and all the tax strategies we use with our clients. And then we're going to try to do one of these about once a month. Our next ones after that will be probably on Social Security and Medicare and healthcare and retirement. So we've got a whole agenda of this. And again, moneyevolution.com is what we're trying to really build out, that website to really be a portal where you can go and get financial information about all kinds of different financial topics. So anyway, thank you for watching. Be sure to click like and subscribe on our videos, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.